Welcome to Anon Stories, where the shadows whisper, the walls have ears, and the nightmares you thought were imaginary come alive. Dare to watch, if you're ready to face what lurks in the dark. I bought a vintage mirror, and my reflection keeps moving after me. Chloe Bennett, a 29-year-old interior designer with a passion for vintage items, attends a local estate sale on a crisp autumn Saturday morning. The sale takes place at the former residence of Mrs. Eleanor Winters, a reclusive elderly woman who recently passed away. While browsing through the eclectic collection, Chloe is immediately drawn to an ornate antique mirror with an intricate silver frame featuring twisted vines and small, almost imperceptible faces hidden in the metalwork. Despite the mirror's slightly tarnished appearance, Chloe negotiates with the estate manager and purchases it for a surprisingly low price. As she loads it into her car, an elderly neighbor watches from across the street with a concerned expression. 3 days after purchasing the mirror, Chloe notices something unusual while getting ready for work. As she applies her lipstick, her reflection seems to complete the motion a split second after she does. Dismissing it as a trick of the light or her imagination, Chloe hurries off to meet her best friend and business partner, Maya Rodriguez, for coffee before heading to a client meeting. Throughout the day, Chloe feels unsettled, but doesn't mention the mirror to Maya. That evening, Chloe deliberately tests the mirror by making quick movements and confirms that her reflection is indeed lagging behind by a noticeable delay. While taking a shower, she hears what sounds like footsteps in her bedroom, but finds nothing when she investigates. Before going to bed, Chloe notices a small engraving on the back of the mirror's frame. The initials VM, along with the date 1887, which she photographs to research later. Over the next week, the delay in Chloe's reflection grows increasingly pronounced, now lagging several seconds behind her movements. Disturbed by this phenomenon, Chloe begins researching antique mirrors online and discovers forums discussing haunted objects. She calls Maya, who laughs off her concerns and suggests the mirror might just have unusual properties due to its age and craftsmanship. Unconvinced, Chloe visits a local antique shop where the owner, Marcus Blackwood, examines her photos of the mirror with great interest. Marcus identifies the mirror as potentially being the work of Victorian craftsman Vincent Morrow, known for his exceptional but rare pieces. He advises Chloe to document any unusual occurrences and offers to research the mirror's provenance. That night, Chloe wakes at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of tapping coming from the mirror. When she approaches it, she sees her reflection smiling back at her despite her own terrified expression. Increasingly frightened, Chloe seeks out Dr. Elizabeth Chen, a history professor at the local university who specializes in Victorian artifacts and folklore. Dr. Chen examines Chloe's photos and listens to her account with growing concern. The professor shares legends about soul mirrors, crafted by certain artisans who allegedly infused dark magic into their creations, designed to trap the essence of those who gazed into them. Dr. Chen warns Chloe not to spend too much time in front of the mirror and promises to consult her colleagues about Vincent Morrow. On her way home, Chloe stops at a spiritual shop where the owner, Madame Josephine, immediately senses something wrong when Chloe describes the mirror. Josephine gives Chloe protective herbs to burn in her apartment and warns her that objects can become vessels for entities seeking to cross between worlds. That night, Chloe dreams of being trapped behind glass, pounding on it, while watching another version of herself living her life. Determined to understand what's happening, Chloe takes a day off work to visit the county records office. She researches the address where the estate sale took place and discovers that the house has had 6 different owners in the past 40 years, an unusually high turnover. Further digging reveals that 3 previous owners died under mysterious circumstances, while others moved away suddenly without explanation. Chloe tracks down Thomas Parker, the nephew of Eleanor Winters, who reveals that his aunt became increasingly paranoid in her final months, claiming someone else was living in her house and watching her from the mirrors. Thomas mentions that Eleanor had covered all reflective surfaces in the house before her death. When Chloe returns home that evening, she finds the mirror has somehow moved from her bedroom to the living room wall. Most disturbingly, when she walks past it, her reflection remains perfectly still, watching her with an unblinking gaze until Chloe backs away. Chloe wakes to find scratches on her bathroom mirror spelling out, "Let me out." Terrified, she covers the antique mirror with a sheet before leaving for an important client meeting. During the meeting, Chloe keeps seeing her reflection in windows and polished surfaces, though the reflections seem to be watching her rather than mimicking her movements. Maya notices Chloe's distraction and growing paranoia, confronting her afterward about her strange behavior. When Chloe finally confesses her fears about the mirror, Maya insists on coming over to see it for herself. That evening, when Maya visits Chloe's apartment, the mirror appears perfectly normal. Maya suggests Chloe might be experiencing stress-induced hallucinations and recommends she see a therapist. As Maya leaves, Chloe notices her friend's reflection lingering in the mirror for several seconds after she's gone. That night, Chloe awakens to find her own reflection standing at the foot of her bed, though the mirror remains covered. Desperate and sleep-deprived, Chloe convinces Maya to help her research the mirror's history. They visit Marcus Blackwood again, who has discovered disturbing information about Vincent Morrow. According to historical accounts, Morrow was accused of witchcraft and disappeared after several of his clients reported seeing doppelgangers of themselves. Marcus introduces them to his friend Daniel Okafor, a paranormal investigator who agrees to examine the mirror. At Chloe's apartment, Daniel uses various equipment to detect unusual energy patterns around the mirror. When he photographs it, the digital image shows a distorted face behind Chloe's reflection, a face that doesn't belong to anyone in the room. Daniel confirms that the mirror is dangerous and suggests they consult his mentor, an elderly woman named Agnes Whitmore, who has experience with haunted objects. Meanwhile, Chloe notices that small personal items in her apartment keep moving positions when she's not looking, and she frequently feels like she's being watched from behind. Chloe and Maya meet Agnes Whitmore at her cluttered Victorian home filled with strange artifacts and books. Agnes reveals that Vincent Morrow was part of a secretive occult group called the Veiled Reflection that believed they could achieve immortality by creating vessels to house human consciousness. Morrow's mirrors were designed to gradually draw the soul of the owner into the glass while allowing something else to emerge. Agnes shares a journal from her collection written by Morrow's assistant, describing how the craftsman used mercury mixed with blood and other unidentified substances in his mirror-making process. The journal also contains accounts of previous mirror owners who reported seeing their reflections act independently before disappearing entirely. Each disappearance coincided with reports of the person behaving strangely in the days following, as though they were no longer themselves. Agnes warns that the entity in the mirror is likely growing stronger with each passing day, and that Chloe must find a way to break the mirror's connection to her before her reflection completely separates from her control. Chloe returns home to find her apartment in disarray, though there's no sign of a break-in. The mirror has been uncovered and moved to a prominent position on her living room wall. When Maya calls to check on her, Chloe hears her own voice answering from the other room, while she stands frozen in shock, listening to herself tell Maya everything is fine. Chloe begins experiencing lost time, moments where she can't remember what she was doing or how she got to certain places. She discovers strange drawings hidden in her sketchbook that she has no memory of creating, depicting the mirror with a shadowy figure emerging from it. Chloe installs cameras in her apartment to monitor the mirror and herself. But the footage shows her sleepwalking each night, standing before the mirror for hours, engaged in what appears to be silent conversation with her reflection. Most disturbing of all, the final recording shows her reflection reaching out toward the glass, while Chloe remains still, their fingertips nearly touching at the mirror's surface, before the camera suddenly loses power. Dr. Chen contacts Chloe with a breakthrough discovery. She's found records indicating that Vincent Morrow didn't actually disappear, but was found dead in his workshop, apparently having committed suicide by slitting his wrists before a mirror identical to Chloe's. More importantly, she's located a diary belonging to Eliza Crawford, a woman who owned one of Morrow's mirrors in 1889 and documented her experiences. The diary reveals that the mirrors were designed as doorways, allowing entities from another dimension to cross over by exchanging places with their human counterparts. According to Eliza's account, the process takes exactly 13 days to complete, with the reflection growing more independent each day until the final exchange occurs. Chloe realizes with horror that she purchased the mirror exactly 10 days ago, leaving her only 3 days before the entity can fully emerge. When she returns home, Chloe finds Maya waiting for her, concerned about their earlier phone call. As they talk, Chloe notices that Maya's reflection in the mirror is mouthing different words and making slashing motions across its throat. When Chloe points this out, Maya sees nothing unusual, but agrees to help Chloe find a way to destroy the mirror before it's too late. Chloe and Maya attempt to remove the mirror from the apartment, but when they touch it simultaneously, an invisible force throws them across the room. Maya hits her head on the corner of a table and requires medical attention. At the hospital, Chloe notices that her own reflection is now completely autonomous, mimicking a different person entirely, who watches her with malicious interest from every reflective surface. When a nurse enters the room, Chloe sees the nurse's reflection performing different actions in the window glass. Realizing the entity is affecting other people near her, Chloe flees the hospital to protect Maya. She returns to Agnes Whitmore's house in desperation, only to find the elderly woman in a catatonic state, staring blankly at a small hand mirror. A note in Agnes's handwriting warns, "It's spreading through all reflective surfaces. Don't let it touch you through the glass." Chloe drives away, avoiding looking at her car mirrors, and checks into a motel where she immediately covers all reflective surfaces. She receives a text from an unknown number containing only a mirror emoji, followed by the words, "Day 11, almost time." Chloe wakes to find herself back in her apartment with no memory of how she returned there. The mirror now dominates the entire wall, its frame having somehow expanded overnight. Chloe's phone is filled with calls and texts from Maya and her clients, revealing that she's missed appointments and been acting strangely for the past day, a day she has no recollection of. When she calls Maya, her friend sounds frightened and reveals that Chloe visited her at the hospital yesterday and said disturbing things. Increasingly desperate, Chloe drives to Daniel Okafor's office only to find it empty with signs of a struggle. On his desk is a half-finished email to Chloe, warning about mirror doubles and mentioning an old ritual that might help. Before she can read more, Chloe glimpses her reflection in Daniel's computer screen, smiling at her, while holding what appears to be a bloody shard of glass. Racing back to her car, Chloe sees police lights at her apartment building. A neighbor reports hearing screams and breaking glass from her unit. Knowing she can't return home, Chloe checks into another motel and covers all reflective surfaces before researching rituals to break mirror curses. She falls asleep while reading and dreams of walking through her apartment, except everything is reversed, and outside the windows is a gray, lifeless version of the world where shadowy figures watch her from a distance. Chloe awakens to find herself locked in the bathroom of her motel room, with no memory of how she got there. The mirror cover has been removed, and her reflection is gone entirely from the glass. Instead, the mirror shows her apartment, where a duplicate Chloe moves about, preparing for the day. Chloe watches in horror as this doppelganger interacts with Maya on the phone, perfectly imitating her mannerisms and voice. Chloe pounds on the mirror, but the glass feels solid, and the other Chloe doesn't react. Using a hairpin to unlock the bathroom door, Chloe discovers the motel room is different, subtly wrong in ways she can't quite define. Outside the window is a gray, misty landscape that resembles her neighborhood, but lacks color and detail. Chloe realizes with growing terror that she's somehow been pulled into the mirror world, while her duplicate has taken her place in reality. She finds a journal on the nightstand, written in an ancient language, but with certain phrases she can somehow understand, describing the exchange and how souls trapped in the mirror realm eventually fade away or become the shadowy entities she now sees moving in the mist outside. The journal mentions a ritual that must be performed at the exact moment of completion of the 13-day cycle, midnight on the final day, when the barrier between worlds is thinnest. With mounting desperation, Chloe realizes she has less than 12 hours to find a way back through the mirror before the exchange becomes permanent. Exploring the mirror realm version of her world, Chloe discovers that reflective surfaces work as windows, allowing her to glimpse the real world. She follows her doppelganger through these glimpses, watching as the entity in her body meets with Marcus Blackwood. To Chloe's surprise, Marcus seems to recognize that something is wrong, subtly testing Chloe with questions about their previous conversations. When the doppelganger leaves, Chloe manages to make the mirror in Marcus's shop ripple, catching his attention. Through painstaking effort, she discovers she can make words appear as condensation on the glass. She communicates to Marcus that she's trapped and needs his help with the ritual described in the journal. Marcus understands and begins gathering the necessary items: black candles, salt, iron nails, and the personal effects of the mirror's previous owners. Meanwhile, in the mirror realm, Chloe is pursued by shadowy figures that seem drawn to her living essence. She finds shelter in the mirror version of Agnes Whitmore's house, where she discovers Agnes herself, or what remains of her consciousness, fading into the grayness. Agnes reveals that the entity that took Chloe's place is an ancient being that has used Morrow's mirrors for centuries to enter the human world, leaving its victims trapped as it moves from host to host. With Agnes's last remaining strength, she teaches Chloe how to focus her energy to manipulate objects in the real world, a skill she'll need for the ritual. As midnight approaches, Marcus and Maya, who has been convinced of the truth after witnessing the doppelganger's increasingly strange behavior, set up the ritual components in Chloe's apartment. They lure the doppelganger back by claiming they've found a way to permanently seal the mirror, preventing any chance of Chloe's return. The entity rushes to the apartment, revealing its true nature as it realizes the trap. Its movements become jerky and inhuman, and it speaks in multiple voices as it attacks Marcus. From within the mirror realm, Chloe uses her new ability to manipulate physical objects, creating a distraction that allows Maya to complete the salt circle around the mirror. As the clock approaches midnight, the doppelganger tries desperately to break the ritual preparations, while Chloe positions herself in front of the corresponding mirror in the gray realm. Following Agnes's instructions, Chloe recites the ancient words of the ritual as Marcus and Maya do the same in the real world. The mirror begins to glow with an eerie light, and the barrier between worlds thins. Chloe sees her doppelganger clearly now, its face occasionally shifting to reveal something inhuman beneath the familiar features. The entity lunges at the mirror from the real side, just as Chloe presses her palms against the glass from the mirror realm. A violent energy surge throws everyone backward in both realms as the clock strikes midnight. Chloe finds herself in a liminal space between realms, a void where she faces the true form of the entity, a writhing mass of shadows with countless faces embedded within it, including recent victims she recognizes from news reports. The entity reveals it has existed for centuries, using Morrow's mirrors as gateways between worlds. It offers Chloe a deal, a shared existence in her body rather than being trapped forever in the mirror realm. As Chloe refuses, the entity becomes enraged and attempts to overwhelm her consciousness. In the real world, Maya and Marcus watch as Chloe's body convulses, sometimes speaking in Chloe's voice, sometimes in an ancient language. The mirror glows with increasing intensity as the two consciousnesses battle for dominance. Using the knowledge Agnes gave her, Chloe focuses on her connection to her physical body and the people who care for her. She recalls every detail of her real life, strengthening her claim to her existence as the entity tries to erase her memories. At the critical moment, Maya completes the ritual by pressing the iron nails into the four corners of the mirror's frame while reciting the binding words from Morrow's assistant's journal. The entity screams as its connection to the human world begins to sever. With a final surge of will, Chloe pushes back toward reality as Marcus smashes the mirror with a hammer precisely at the end of the ritual's final word. As the mirror shatters, a shockwave of energy throws everyone across the room. Each fragment of glass contains a tiny portion of the entity, its power divided and weakened. Chloe regains consciousness in her own body, disoriented but whole again. Maya and Marcus carefully collect every shard of the mirror using thick gloves and special containers provided by Agnes before her encounter with the mirror. They explain that each piece must be separated and disposed of in different locations to prevent the entity from reforming. Chloe learns that she was missing for nearly 2 days in the real world while the doppelganger took her place, damaging several of her client relationships and causing concern among her friends. Daniel Okafor is found alive but traumatized in his office, having been trapped in a partial mirror state when he tried to help Chloe. As they work to contain the mirror fragments, one sliver cuts Maya's finger despite the gloves. Though the wound is small, Chloe notices Maya's reflection briefly moving independently in a window before returning to normal, suggesting that tiny fragments of the entity might still be active. Marcus assures them that without the complete mirror, the entity cannot fully manifest, but warns that they should remain vigilant for any signs of unusual activity in reflective surfaces. In the weeks following the mirror's destruction, Chloe works to rebuild her life and career. She helps Marcus and Daniel document everything they've learned about Morrow's mirrors, discovering that at least 7 other mirrors from the same set may exist around the world. Chloe experiences occasional side effects from her time in the mirror realm, moments where reflective surfaces seem to ripple when she's emotional, and dreams where she's back in the gray world. She visits Agnes, who remains in a care facility, occasionally lucid enough to provide additional insights about the mirror entities. During one such visit, Agnes warns Chloe that once someone has crossed between realms, they are forever marked and more sensitive to supernatural phenomena. Maya recovers from her minor injury, but Chloe notices subtle changes in her friend's behavior, a new fascination with her own reflection, and moments where she seems to stare into space as if listening to something no one else can hear. When Chloe confronts her, Maya insists she's fine, though she admits to having strange dreams about gray landscapes. Together they visit Thomas Parker again, who reveals more about his Aunt Eleanor's final days and her warnings about reflections that watch and wait. Chloe begins to suspect that the mirror entity's influence might be more widespread than they initially believed, with fragments of its consciousness possibly scattered among those who came into contact with it. 6 months after destroying the mirror, Chloe has moved to a new apartment and redesigned her space to minimize reflective surfaces. She's working with Marcus to track down other Morrow mirrors, using historical records and auction house databases. During a trip to authenticate a potential Morrow mirror in a neighboring city, Chloe meets Eliza Crawford's great-granddaughter, Rebecca, who possesses family journals detailing how Eliza survived her encounter with a mirror entity in 1889. The journals reveal that Eliza never fully escaped its influence, often seeing glimpses of the gray world in dreams and reflections throughout her life. Rebecca confides that many family members have experienced similar phenomena, suggesting a generational connection to the mirror realm. On her way home, Chloe notices a familiar face in a crowd, a person who looks exactly like one of the fading souls she encountered in the mirror world. When she tries to approach them, they vanish into the crowd. That night, Chloe wakes to find all the digital screens in her apartment showing the same image, the gray, misty landscape of the mirror realm. A text message arrives from an unknown number. "The glass was just one door. We have many." The message is signed with the initials VM. Chloe immediately calls Maya, but her friend doesn't answer. Concerned, Chloe drives to Maya's apartment and finds her standing before a bathroom mirror, having an animated conversation with her reflection, which is moving independently and speaking in a voice that isn't Maya's. Chloe intervenes just in time to prevent Maya from completing a ritual that would have strengthened the fragment of the entity within her. With Marcus and Daniel's help, they perform a cleansing ceremony that appears to remove the entity's influence from Maya, though Daniel warns that such influences often leave permanent traces. In the aftermath, Chloe establishes a support group for people who have experienced supernatural phenomena related to reflections and mirrors, creating a network to identify and contain Morrow's remaining creations. Through this network, they discover patterns, suggesting the entity is not a single being, but part of a collective consciousness that exists in the space between reflections, occasionally breaking through into the human world. Chloe returns to the estate where she first purchased the mirror and, with the current owner's permission, examines the house thoroughly. In the attic, she discovers hidden documentation revealing that Vincent Morrow didn't create the mirrors as much as he discovered a way to craft windows to an already existing realm. The final pages contain Morrow's confession that he eventually realized what he had done and tried to destroy his creations, but the entities had already spread beyond his control. As Chloe leaves the estate, she catches a glimpse of herself in a car window. For just a moment, her reflection smiles independently before synchronizing with her movements. Though the immediate threat is past, Chloe understands that her connection to the mirror realm will never completely vanish. She resolves to use her experience to protect others, knowing that somewhere behind every reflective surface, the entities are still watching, waiting for another chance to cross over. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Share this video with your friends, and I'll see you in the next one.